Alright, hello everyone. So I forgot to actually make this video here, but I wanted to yap about all of the new Battle Pass E.G.Os that have come out with the full unlock of the Battle Pass. So let's start off with Hex Nail Sinclair. Hex Nail Sinclair, in my opinion, currently doesn't have a purpose, but it does open up new avenues for some sort of ID for it. So Hex Nail Sinclair basically has a few parts to it, but the main part here is that it is going to be if the target has curse, immediately activate it twice and reduce it by 2. It is mainly focused on cursing a target, and you want to get envy resonance as well with this thing here. By default, it is going to be a singular attack weight, and all of its kit is pretty much curses, nails, clash power down. The passive is clash power up and 1 defense power up, and gain 1 protection for every 3 negative effects on self. Yes, you need 3 per 1 protection. And right now, it is pretty tricky for any Sinclair to get it unless you do specific content with specific IDs. Zoi Sinclair's Tremor does count as a negative effect. Then after that, he needs to get hit with a bunch of other negative effects, and then he will get some decent clashing boosts from the grimy hide over here. But besides that, right, there's no Sinclair ID that actually by itself does curse. And if you want to do a curse team, there isn't such a thing right now. But I guess this kind of opens up a possible avenue of curse IDs in the future, where they will apply a bunch of curses. Then this Hex Nail Sinclair will actually have a purpose. Otherwise, like, what's the point of this line here? Like, yes, you can stack 2 curses here, and you also can probably very easily get another 2 curses over here. So that's 4 curses. Curses reduced by 1 count every single turn, which means that you will want to stack up a lot of curses on the target, and then you can also use this E.G.O afterwards to immediately stack a bunch of debuffs on the target this turn, and then you reduce it by 2. Like, curses aren't going to make you kill something faster. The curses really just apply random debuffs, which is lower enemy defense skills. So their evasion skills, their guard skills all become lower. Attack power down means their clashing power becomes way less. 2 offense level down, this only really works when you hit 3 offense level down, so this is a bit awkward. 2 defense level down is a little bit more damage. By little, I mean really little, but yeah, it is still a okay debuff, I guess, but not that amazing. So yes, technically you can spam this E.G.O and just get a bunch of curses on the target, and then get a bunch of debuffs on the target to make the enemy much weaker. But at the same time, you're paying these resources here for basically not speeding up your run, or not killing the boss quicker, or yeah, I don't know, like, it's not that amazing. I'm not gonna lie, like, if you want to control a boss, why not just use Chains of Others Assault, a base E.G.O that is only 4 cost. Like, it's so much better to control a target super hardcore. You give him like 5 bind, 5 attack power down. Straight up, if you still can't win the clash, your units are severely under leveled. So I think Hex Nail here is possibly to open up a new archetype in the future, but as a control status, it isn't really going to do anything that Chains of Others wouldn't do already, or a Crow's Eye View even. Crow's Eye View is -2 attack power down, right? I can't remember already lah. But yeah, both of those just control targets way better, and this is RNG by the way, so yeah, I don't know so far. I guess you could use this as an E.G.O just to trigger Ring Yisang or Ring Otis, but there's so many other statuses you could be doing, and they don't cost resources also, you know. Alright, besides that, there's nothing much else to talk about for this E.G.O here. It has some niche uses with some of the Sinclair IDs, but it's not going to be a very used E.G.O in my opinion. It is just not it right now. We will need a lot of curse support in the future, like maybe curse IDs that will say like convert curse to bleed, or I do more damage if enemy has curse, or I gain coin power if enemy has this amount of curse, or I convert curse into special curse or some shit like that. Like, there has to be some other build up to the curse to make it actually good, because this curse is really like whatever. But let's talk about Hex Nail Rodion, which is slightly better than Sinclair, because by default, it is a 3 AoE, which is already very, very nice. It also has healing on it, which makes it very utility, especially in this recent content, which is pretty hard if you don't have a sustained E.G.O. And at 4+ Envy Resonance, including this skill, you also heal 1 additional ally. So by default, we already have a pretty decent healing E.G.O. here. And the passive is that when you inflict bleed on targets or unique bleed, you will inflict 1 defense level down. So this is a bit of foreshadowing to a future Rodion ID. If the target has bleed or unique bleed, you also inflict additional 2 bleed once per turn. If an ally, including this unit, takes direct HP damage from the enemy, you will inflict 1 curse against the target enemy. So if you use someone like E.G.O Rodion who loves to get hit, sometimes you will be able to actually inflict curses directly to the opponent. So this passive here is a lot more versatile than the other Sinclair's one, and this awakening here is useful just because it has healing and what other stuff down here. It doesn't really matter, and it also has a triple AoE. So even if you just want to use this as a slashing AoE E.G.O that is relatively cheap-ish with healing on it as well, it's going to be quite decent to use. But at the same time, if you want just pure sustain, Pursuance Rodion is significantly better because you are going to have attack weight 3 by default. You are going to have 34 clashing power. You have inflict sloth rigidity, heal 2 allies with 30% HP, and if target is staggered or defeated, apply 15% of this unit's max HP as shield to allies that this unit healed. And then whenever an enemy is staggered, the ally with the least HP heals 4% of their max HP. So you can imagine that this E.G.O here is legit going to heal you by a shit ton, even if it's only used 1 time in a run, just because of this passive over here. So yeah, I think the value-wise, Pursuance would probably win out if you are just using Hex Nail Rodion for healing. But if you're using it for a damage E.G.O, then that's a different story, because that one is Sloth Blunt, this one is Envy Slash. So if you are just using this for damage, it might out DPS the other one just because it has 2 extra coins to it. It has 20 something ish, and it's also going to hit 3 AoE here. So it is technically going to damage out damage the other E.G.O if you are hitting the right targets with the right weaknesses, with the right elemental weaknesses as well. So yeah, this E.G.O does have a place, I think, in Rodion's kit. This one is a he E.G.O, right? So I think you will have to compete with Pursuance, which is going to be a little bit tricky, but depending on the content, I could see myself using this E.G.O here. But for Sinclair, I would need a lot of support to even consider using this Hex Nail over here, because this Hex Nail is just not it right now. Alright, so that's pretty much the Hex Nails, not too interesting. But let's move on to Yearning Mircalla, which is very interesting. So, you know that there is a WoW E.G.O for Rodion that is Sanguine Desire. There's also now going to be Yearning Mircalla. And Yearning Mircalla is very cool because it is going to be a 4-coiner. And this 4-coiner is going to have coin power +1 for every 6 bleed on the target. It's going to cost you 40 sanity like any WoW E.G.O, and it also has unbreakable coins because why not? So coin power +2, 6, 12, 18, 24, 24, 29 in total if you can get all of the coin power over here. 29 is not bad for clashing already in terms of E.G.Os, and is going to be able to win most things as long as you choose the right targets. And since this part is unbreakable over here, you're always guaranteed to get these effects over here, but you will only get the hit after clash win effect where you apply additional +2 rose wedge count if you win the clash. So you always win the clash, never ever use this E.G.O against a losing clash. Even though it's unbreakable, you probably don't want to do that, alright? This E.G.O is also going to be quite expensive because it's a WoW E.G.O, which costs around 11 resources in total, and it will of course be lust oriented with a bit of pride and envy. So the cool thing about this E.G.O is that if you always trigger Lust Resonance with this E.G.O, you will pretty much always be able to get Activate Bleed on the target once. And that's the whole point here. You run a team of Bloodfiends, you stack a bunch of Bleed on the target, and then after a while you just pop this E.G.O here to activate the Bleed, which activating means that you can treat it like the enemy is actually attacking you. Because when enemies attack you, they take fixed damage by this effect's potency. So that means that if you activate it, you trigger the potency and it will -1 the bleed count because of the activation. So it's like treating it like a regular attack. So you activate it once, activate it twice, activate it maximum of 3 times here, which is based on 1 plus highest resonance divided by 2. So you need to get 4 resonance at minimum, because 1 plus 2 equals 3. Anyway, that will also lose you 3 bleed count equal to the number of times it was activated. So this is not an E.G.O that you really want to use when you are just building up your bleed count. you need quite a lot of bleed count with this E.G.O because you will pop it quite a lot here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, not including the enemies clashing on you. So you will need a lot of bleed count on the opponent, otherwise you will nuke your entire bleed on the opponent. And then your Rose Wedge here, the effect is you will gain 1 potency every time this unit takes 10 bleed damage. When the enemy is gaining bleed or unique bleed, he gets additional 2 bleed, which is very good. It's like Talisman Sinclair but fixed. And it also inflicts 1 bleed against the attacker, which is good because Bloodfiends like to bleed, and Fang Han Honglu also loves to bleed. So all of this stuff here is kind of synergizing pretty well already to form the Rupture Bleed gang that we are thinking about now. And at 10 potency, you also gain 1 bleed count as well when you trigger this above effect over here. So that means once you have done a lot of additional bleed damage to the target, by the way, if you don't know, you will gain potency every time this unit takes 10 bleed damage. So that means that once you bled him a lot, maybe like 99 bleed on the target, well, that's basically a full stack of the potency here, you will gain 1 bleed count as well when triggering the above effect, which is really awesome for bleed in general. And then at turn end, you lose 1 count. So you have 4 turns to make the good use of this Rose Wedge here. And the idea is that you want to stack it to 10 potency or just keep it as high as possible so that you can let it drop to 1 count. Because even if you just keep it on the opponent, you are getting free potency application over here. And then what happens is that it will expire, you will deal potency times 10 lust damage. And if the unit inflicted with this effect dies, or when this effect expires, increase Blood Feast by potency times 10 and deal potency times 2 lust damage against all of its allies. So this is a very workhorse status. It gives you more potency application, it gives you bleed count at maximum, it gives you lust damage, and it also spreads and increases Blood Feast if the unit had Rose Wedge on it. So Blood Feast stacking, lust damage to all enemies, lust damage to the target as well, and stacking a bunch of bleed on the target. It's just really damn good. The only weakness is that you have to apply it to only 1 target at the start. Right, you can only choose 1 target to apply it to. That's its only big weakness. I wish this was AoE somehow, but I think that would be ridiculous because it's a 4-coin E.G.O, which would be ridiculously strong if it was AoE. Anyway, activate the target's bleed a bunch of times, and on kill, when you deal excess damage past the enemy's remaining HP, you will deal the excess damage as fixed damage between all enemies. So even after all of this stuff over here, even if it's not just to apply Rose Wedge, you will still get an effect where if you kill the guy, you will not be wasting all of this stuff here. You will spread all of your damage to all of the other opponents, which is very good. So this Yearning Mircalla is a real beast of an E.G.O, and yeah, it's just super strong. The corroded form is interesting. You have an on-use effect here where you consume 10% of this unit's max HP, and you deal HP divided by 2 damage to all enemies and allies. And once you hit less than 50%, you inflict and activate 5 bleed on all allies instead. So you need to activate 5 bleed on all allies instead. You also heal HP equal to the amount of bleed damage dealt to allies. So this E.G.O, the corroded form, right, is quite interesting because it feels like it definitely does have a purpose. And notice that it is also positive coins, right? It's still positive coins, which is why I think that this corroded form here actually does have an interesting purpose. You can activate the bleed early, which will help to actually cleanse all of your allies, right? You can cleanse all of your allies of the bleed off of them if you have to by making them take a fixed amount of damage here that you can control. Like if they only have like what, 1 potency and 10 bleed count, you can actually just do this and just bleed them a shit ton, but it'll be better than letting them get more bleed stacked on them or some shit like that. It also helps you to heal. It also helps to inflict a bunch of bleed among all of your allies, and if they're all Bloodfiends, they will generally enjoy this, and there's a lot of other interesting shit in this corroded form here. So this part here really does seem like this is not that bad. It also costs 30 sanity, by the way, and this one costs 40 sanity in total. So yeah, it looks pretty interesting, and I wonder why they made it like this. Maybe Superbia's superpower was so that we can actually use these corroded forms because they cost a shit ton. Anyway, for the passive here, the passive is just straight up when this unit deals or takes bleed damage, you heal HP equal to the bleed damage. and when you activate a skill or coin that inflicts bleed, if the target has Rose Wedge, you inflict additional bleed potency against the target. So yeah, the passive is amazing, the awakening is amazing, the corrosion looks like it actually could be used for some situations, but I will need to actually go and test it out a little bit more, and I'm probably going to wait until a Bloodfiend of Meursault actually comes out, because I'm expecting a Bloodfiend to come out for this character here. Yes, I could use Rhino, but at the same time I kind of hope I don't have to use Rhino, although most likely, I mean, Rhino will probably be the ID to use for this E.G.O in particular. I just don't like that he only has one lust in his skill tree over here. Like, I mean, it is usable, I just don't like that he only has one lust, which means that I would have to pay the Meursault tax in order to use this lust resonance shenanigans every now and then. So yeah, this Meursault E.G.O is quite a monster, and I'm hoping he gets an ID that really loves to bleed himself also, because he's applying this Rose Wedge, and Rhino Meursault doesn't really have a way to interact with the bleed of himself, so I feel like that's a bit of a waste. So it would be better if they release a Bloodfiend of some sort for Meursault, and then it will all make sense. Alright, and then the last one over here is, I mean, it's Yearning Mircalla Don, and this E.G.O is straight up just a bunch of unbreakable coins, but also doesn't matter. You know why? Because you're not going to lose a clash with this E.G.O at all. You have coin power +1 up to max of 2, and you have clash power +1 up to a max of 5. So if you can get all of this over here, which is 20 bleed potency on the target, it's going to be 5, 10, 15, 20, 23. So by E.G.O standard, this is not very high. But the clash power +5 over here is going to be 28-ish, which is okay, yeah. You're not going to lose a clash with this E.G.O, and you are hitting literally every single enemy that you can see. So this is a very, very powerful 4-coin AoE E.G.O. Remember how I said a 4-coin AoE E.G.O in an AoE is going to be ridiculous? Well, shit dude, look at this E.G.O. It's 4 coins in a 7 AoE by default. No resonance required. So this thing here is going to hit like an absolute truck, and no one can tell me otherwise. I'm sure some people have already destroyed all enemies with this E.G.O already. It's really damn strong, because 4 coin AoE. I don't think I need to say anything else. It's 4 coin in an AoE. Okay, and besides all of that, right, you also deal more damage for Blood Feast consumed, and it's in a shared pool, which means that it's actually going to be quite fast if you run her in the Bloodfiend gang, and all of you drink blood. Then you will be able to get a lot of extra damage output from all of this stuff over here, and you also inflict Polydipsic Rose. So Polydipsic Rose has a max value of 5. It's going to be based on the highest Lust A resonance, and at 10 plus bleed potency on the target, they will take Lust damage equal to 1% of this unit's max HP, maximum of 30 damage. So it is very, very nice extra damage, but the main point of this E.G.O here is that you're going to hit them super, super hard, and then you're going to inflict this shit over here, and they're going to just bleed to death by bleed, and bleed to death by the Rose. So they're just bleeding twice, in my opinion. So yeah, this thing here is just really damn good. This Yearning Mircalla is going to be negative coin, by the way, so the corroded form is most likely not going to be very relevant. By the way, this E.G.O for some reason also has a you cannot drop below 1 while using this skill. Sure, I guess immortality for Dawn works, I guess. So yeah, she just straight up cannot die when she's using this E.G.O. If the target has 10 plus bleed, coin power -1, at 200 plus it's going to be coin power -1. This is also a negative coin, so you want to be probably low SP when you're doing this. The coin power -1 is a cool effect actually, because it means that the lower sanity you are, the more value you get out of this one over here. And then you just get a bunch of bleed onto yourself, you nuke it, you lose 2 bleed count, and then blah 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 blah. This part here doesn't really seem super amazing, so I don't really know if this part will actually be used, but this part here definitely is just a monstrous E.G.O, especially with the 4 coins over here, just really damn strong. And the passive is just straight up, every time 10 bleed damage occurs, you heal 1 SP on yourself. So this character, so this ID, right, is just going to be super sane, or maybe another Earl King type archetype, where he needs to be sane sometimes and needs to be insane sometimes. So this support passive here will just give her a lot of extra SP generation or something like that. I don't know, but this E.G.O just seems ridiculously strong just at base. The corroded doesn't seem so interesting yet, and the passive is just free SP gain every time 10 bleed damage occurs. It doesn't matter which person takes the bleed also. So if you bleed all of your fellow Bloodfiends, you will all just heal. Well, I mean, she will heal SP off of her allies also bleeding for her. So yeah, this E.G.O is just really damn strong. I don't think I need to really explain it beyond 4 coin, 7 AoE, alright? 4 coin, 7 AoE, alright? So yeah, this E.G.O is just going to hit like an absolute truck in an AoE. Okay, so that is pretty much going to be all of the E.G.Os over here. If I missed out anything, feel free to let me know. But right now, the biggest one that I'm hoping for is definitely a Bloodfiend ID for Yearning Mircalla Meursault. I know Rhino can be used, I know, but I rather not, because I want a Bloodfiend to interact with the fact that this thing over here, Rose Wedges, will inflict potency onto yourself. Like, that part there is just super cool to me, and I hope that that means that Meursault is getting a Bloodfiend. It could be any Bloodfiend. I don't give a shit which Bloodfiend ID he gets. He could be regular Joe Bloodfiend who enjoys bleeding himself. He could be a Blood Bag Meursault. Just be Blood Bag Meursault, and I would totally still use him just because of Yearning Mircalla. Like, just give me any Meursault for this Bloodfiend archetype. Like, it's just so damn cool. Alright, anyway, that's it for this video. That's enough simping for Meursault, and I shall see you guys next time. Bye bye.